What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode. And today we are discussing A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms episode 5 titled In the Name of the Mother. And we will be breaking down this badass episode with the trial of 7 and everything that went down. But coming off of last week's episode and Dunk's big speech that got Baelor to join Team Dunk for our trial of 7, with the teams being set for Team Bright Flame, we got Aegon, his father Maekar, his brother Darren, Sir Stefan Fossaway, and 3 Kingsguard. That makes up his 7. And then for Team Dunk, we have Dunk, Sir Humphrey Harding with the broken leg, Sir Beesbury with the orange mustache, Sir Robin One-Eye, Sir Lionel the Laughing Knight Baratheon, or the Laughing Storm Baratheon, newly knighted Sir Raymond Fossaway, and rounding out their team, Lord Baelor. But we open this episode with Baelor giving a speech to Team Dunk and telling them not to panic. And Raymond and Dunk throw up because they're just a couple of green fucking boys. Or at least I think Humphrey Harding calls them. They throw up and he goes, green fucking boys. But Baelor says, don't worry about the Kingsguard to the Dunk's team. And Baelor says that they are forbidden to hurt somebody of the crown. And Sir One-Eye, Robin Riesling, Sir One-Eye, says, is that honorable, your grace? And Baelor says, well, the gods will let us know. Uh-oh. Foreshadowing. But Baelor finishes talking to Dunk's little group by saying, be vigilant, don't die. And Dunk takes his lance from Egg, and Egg's looking up at him, and just the scale from this shot, like Dunk looks like a mountain compared to Egg, and he takes his lance from him, and Dunk has the same little exchange from with Egg that he had from an earlier episode in the series, and he's like, you better be here when I get back, and rob me, I'll hunt you down with dogs. And instead of him saying, you don't have dogs, woof, like, instead of that whole exchange, Egg just looks at him and goes, woof, little puppy woof that he gives back. And then Dunk turns around like, oh shit, this might be the last time I ever get to talk to my new friend, but I guess I have to go decide if I'm innocent or guilty in this battle and try and survive. And then we cut to a quick intro title card with like no intro song, just a black cut with white lettering. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this show is so raw. Like, just absolutely astonishing stuff here. But we cut to Knight of the Seven Kingdoms title card, and afterwards we cut back to shots of Dunk and Aegon putting on their helmets. And I gotta say, the design for Dunk's suit, it's not so flashy, but it's damn near exactly ripped off the pages of George R.R. Martin's book, and like the drawings are almost exactly the same, with the little slit in the helmet, the armor around the neck, the chainmail, this like just greenish brownish covering that he's wearing as like a schmuck to cover everything. Man, oh man. And Thunder the horse, we gotta make sure Thunder's all right. But oof. But some absolute sick shots. Aegon's helmet looks sick as he like puts it down. But the shots of Dunk's team all lined up look so sick. And like we see a shot of them like from the side, and we see Robin One-Eye and Fossaway and Baratheon and Lord Baelor and then Dunk. And then we see a shot of them like all armored up from the front as all 7 of them are all lined up. And you can just see friggin' Sir Lionel Baratheon in his gold armor with his giant antlers, just absolutely aura-farming over there. But so sick, this shot of them with the fog and just the 7 men on horseback, like, oh, just ready to go into battle. So sick. And like all the armor, like they absolutely cooked the armor department. Like look at Baelor's armor for his horse, and like his armor, Dunk's armor, Aegon's armor looks sick, Maekar's armor looks sick, Baratheon's looks absolutely incredible in gold, and then like Sir Stefan Fossaway's armor, even though he's a prick, is also kind of sick with the apple on the chest. Sir Robin with One-Eye has the armor that goes over the one eye. The Kingsguard are pure white cloaked, and their horses are white armored as well. And then there's Sir Humphrey Harding, who still has some pretty good armor. But like, the armor department deserves a raise for sure. But then the horns sound and everybody charges, but Dunk hesitates at first, and then he goes off, and like the shot that we see from behind Dunk as everybody's charging all at once at different times, and then he's behind everybody, and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen here? And then he's charging at Aegon. Aegon gets a lance off first and hits Dunk, and it knocks him back off his horse, and he takes a friggin' lance right to the chest and like, you know, right to the stomach, and pulls out the lance. So now he's already got one hole in him, and he just went one time through. Like, oof. God, this is such a brutal affair. But, you know, as Dunk's sitting there messed up now with a lance in his stomach, he pulls it out, and then Aegon turns around and comes back for round 2, and Aegon knocks Dunk off his horse and knocks him out cold to the ground as we cut to black when he, you know, goes unconscious. But as he cuts to the black unconscious, we cut to a young Dunk in a flashback, and young Dunk is looting men and horses after a bloody battle, and there's just men and bodies screwed everywhere. So young Dunk is here like taking horseshoes and anything that he can find of value that he can sell, because he's just a little rat from Flea Bottom, you know. But young Dunk, in his little looting here, he comes across a man that's barely alive and is being crushed by a horse. And he's like, I'm sorry. And he goes to put him out of his misery and like covers his mouth to like stop him from breathing. And his little girlfriend there, Rafe, comes running over and goes, no, stop. He's got a sigil on his chest. We can hold him ransom for one of these lords and make a lot of money off it. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So he just wants to put him out of his misery, and he's a kid about to kill this guy. And she's like, no, let's hold him ransom. Like, Jesus Christ. And I didn't see the sigil on his chest, but I heard people being like, oh, is he a high tower? But obviously you don't recognize this guy from anybody from any of the other shows, and he obviously is dying here, so yeah, not going to be carrying on his legacy. But, you know, she's like, no, leave him, and they try to move the horse, but then the guy, you know, dies, and she's like, all right, well, check his teeth, he might have fillings that we can sell. And he's like, all right, what the fuck? Like, but as like the guy dies, she's like, do you have any words? You're supposed to say words for a lord when he dies. And Dunk's like, I don't have the words. And I was like, wow, casting in this show is just so good. Like, young Dunk is spot on for a young Peter Claffey. And like, he's doing his best Peter, you know, impersonation. But like, as much as he looks like a young Dunk, he also kind of reminds me of like a young Egg too. So like, casting is absolutely spectacular on this show. But we see young Dunk is walking and talking to the girl Rafe, and Dunk is having second thoughts about leaving. And Rafe looks at him and says, hey, if you want to stay, go right ahead. Flea Bottom is tinder waiting to catch fire. I'm not staying. And they get back, and they are stopped by an asshole named Alistair, and he's got one hand, and he's trying to rob them. So Rafe, instead, you get a little distraction comes by and uses the distraction to run away and also steal his booze off of him, and drinks it and just dumps it out like, this is shit, and throws it on the ground. And she's clearly not a very good influence on a young Dunk, but he's all young Dunk has, so he's like, I love you, what are we doing, you know? But Dunk and the young girl Rafe sell off the loot that they just stole, and they have saved up enough coin to get a boat to the free cities and escape from King's Landing. So that's like their plan here. But Dunk says, what if my mother comes back for me? And apparently his mother's dead, but he's like, I know I'm not stupid, but what if she comes back? I know, like, and he sounds pretty stupid. And Rafe goes, you're stupid, and says, I never got anything from sitting here and waiting. So, you know, if you want a family, go out there and get one. And she says, you know, Dunk's like, but I love you. And she's like, I love you too, but I'm going. So if you love me, you better be coming with me. And this city is too small for us, Dunk. And they try to leave the next day, and they go to buy 2 tickets to the ferry to get out of there. And the guy slides the coins back and goes, the price has gone up. And you can see a bunch of people trying to leave as well. So maybe they're not the only ones that had this idea to get the hell out of Dodge. So, you know, the price for the ferry has gone up. So they can't leave. And then they bump into that asshole Alistair again, that Rafe stole his booze earlier, and he comes back and wants it back, but she goes, I sold it, because she didn't keep the flask, and that's really all he wanted. But since she doesn't have this, he steals their coin, and, you know, they're all pissed, and he's like, we earned that, and he's like, stealing stuff off of lords isn't earning, and he's like, what is stealing from us? And the guy's like, well, that's life, and you're like, ooh, scumbags. So this guy steals from 2 kids, and she is pissed, so she pickpockets his knife off of him as they're leaving, but he notices almost immediately and runs back, grabs the knife, and slits the poor girl's throat. So Dunk has to watch this girl, Rafe, die in front of him, and this was probably the first time he saw somebody that he loved die in front of him. And oh god, so poor Rafe's done, and Dunk's pissed, so he jumps on the back of the guy, Alistair, and bites him on the neck. And then, you know, the guy tosses him to the ground, and his little buddy that's with him stabs him in the leg with like a spear. But a drunk man comes rushing in and says, stop in the name of the mother, which is the title of the episode. And he says, let that boy be, and then throws up a little because he's really drunk. But we see that this is Sir Arlen of Pennytree, and he lops off one of the dude's heads and then is fighting with the other guy, and the guy who he lops off his head falls into the pig pen, so, you know, the pigs are going to get a nice little snack. But then he stabs the other guy, Alistair, in the throat, so 2v1, Sir Alistair, shit-faced, beat these guys. So, you know, if anything, or Sir Arlen of Pennytree beat these guys 2v1, so I am impressed with his shit-faced fighting skills, at least. I didn't think he was going to be that good a fighter, but he's a dogged fighter. But this must have been Dunk's first time seeing Sir Arlen, and he was defending him, and he had no idea who he even was. You know, he was just a boy. And so Dunk, the next day, very sad and alone. He's, you know, literally from Flea Bottom, sleeping with the rats in the sewers. You know, like, he's not even, like, really from Flea Bottom. He's, like, from the streets of Flea Bottom. Like, he couldn't be any more poor. And now he's lost his only friend with Rafe. But the next day, he hears Sir Arlen's voice. And he's like, oh, that's the guy that saved me. So we see him with the leg wound and all, just kind of hobbling, following Sir Arlen. And he follows the hedge knight to his tree where he passes out. So Dunk looks around and sees his horses, the 3 of them, and he also picks up his sword and like looks at it, and he sees Sir Arlen's shield with the cup and the wings and the blue sigil of Sir Arlen that we saw earlier this season, Dunk walking around using. And he's completely passed out, so he doesn't notice that Dunk's even there. And then Dunk walks over and pets Sweetfoot, the horse that he had to sell a couple episodes back. And he sees a grave that must have just been dug for somebody close to Sir Arlen. And it's a small grave. So my first thought was maybe this is the nephew that we heard died in battle a few episodes back. And he was like, he lost a nephew, he fought with you in battle. And so maybe this is right after Sir Arlen just lost a nephew and had to bury him there. So then in the morning, Sir Arlen wakes up and takes off on his 3 horses, and Dunk follows him on foot, just hobbling along. And we see Sir Arlen singing in Dothraki, which of course is Jason Momoa's for season 1 Game of Thrones stuff. He's singing in Dothraki. And then Dunk smiles when he sees him practicing with his sword and kind of just swinging that thing around, and the sword's almost as big as Sir Arlen, but you know, he still gets his practice in, and Dunk, like, you know, is giggling at this. But then we see Dunk drink some puddle water because he's very dehydrated, and he'll drink anything because he's that poor, you know. So he drinks some bad puddle water, and then we see him nearly freezing to death. He's dehydrated, he's sick, he's throwing up, he's starving. And Sir Arlen leaves the next morning, and Dunk isn't right on his tail, so he's like, you know, a step slower. And, you know, all of a sudden the next morning, Sir Arlen is like waking up, and he's got a knife that he accidentally slept on, and he's like, oh, you old fool, and he goes to get up and leave, and he sees the young Sir Dunk, or, you know, young boy Dunk, and he sees him collapse, and he walks over to him and hands him some water, and then we just hear Sir Arlen's voice telling him to get up, and as he says get up, we cut back to Sir Arlen's voice echoing in Dunk's head in the present day, telling him to get up as he's flat on his back at the trial of 7. And Sir Arlen's like, get up! And as he says this, Dunk takes a mace from Aegon to the face, another headshot, and then Dunk and Aegon wrestle, and he stabs him, and Dunk is, getting stabbed all over in the leg and in the hand, and he's just getting stabbed in the back, and Dunk's pissed and has finally taken enough stabs, and he snaps Aegon's arm and socks him in the face. And the woman from earlier in the season that called Dunk a sad knight, "Oh, you're just a sad knight, aren't you?" And he's like, "I'm not sad," So that woman, now rooting for Dunk, he gets a slap in, and she goes, "Come on!" Everyone else silent. She just kind of awkwardly sits back down. But hey, I love you, boo. But Dunk is losing lots of blood, and almost too much blood from taking too many stabs. But we also don't know how effective the chainmail is really being, but he's taking shots. And then Aegon throws his sword into Dunk's knee, and Dunk's like, "Ow!" And he pulls it out and then shoves it in the eye hole of his helmet, and it just barely gets through, and looks like it maybe just scratches his eye, maybe gives a nice little scar over the eyelid, but maybe Dunk will still be able to see. But looks like he stabs him in the eye, and then Dunk has to take off his helmet, and he slices Aegon's inner thigh. But I thought maybe he went for the balls, and he sliced his balls a little bit, but no, it looked like maybe inner thigh, upper leg, maybe femur. He was trying to make him bleed a lot or something. But then Maekar sees Dunk getting shots in on Aegon and goes, "My boy!" And he hits Baelor off of him and runs into action, stabs Sir Lionel's horse. Sir Lionel falls. I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. So Dunk's in the middle of the field, and he's, got his bloody eye, he's bleeding out his mouth, he's coughing up blood. He seems to be in real tough shape, and his ears are ringing, he's losing blood, and Aegon is across the field yelling at him, "Do you yield? Yield!" And, asking Dunk if he yields, and it looks like Dunk friggin' folds over and dies. He's in such rough shape that he kind of just keels over and dies right there. And you're like, holy shit, Dunk dies? And you hear Egg yelling, "Get up, sir! Get up! Get up, Sir Duncan!" And none of this works, and they're about to sound the horn to final signal that the battle's over and that the Aegon has won. And all of a sudden you hear Sir Arland in Dunk's head say, "Get up," and Sir Dunk from Sir Arlen's "Get up" arises and back to his feet, and then we get Dunk and Aegon going at it some more, and Dunk smashes him to the ground and smashes his face with Aegon's own shield, and then Dunk's beating on him with his hands, just beating the hell out of Aegon, and Aegon says he yields, but he only says it to Dunk, so Dunk drags his ass in front of everybody and all the lords to make him say that he yields in front of everybody. And, as Aegon said he yields, he looks around and Dunk sees Sir Raymond fighting his cousin, and they tackle each other to the ground, and Maekar hitting Baelor, and you're like, uh-oh. But Dunk drags Aegon in front of the lords, and Aegon withdraws his accusation, and Dunk wins, but he is very weak and bleeding out. So Sir Steely Pete and Sir Raymond catch him and carry him out, and they're like, holy shit, he's fucked up, and they're like, we need to take this armor off of you, and some of the rings from the chainmail might be inside of him from all the stabs that he took, and he's in rough shape. But Dunk, not worried about himself, asks Raymond, did anyone else die? And Raymond tells him that Sir Beesbury with the orange mustache and Sir Harding with the broken leg died in the first charge. So literally 7 on 7, they first charge, and it's already 5v7 just off the rip. And off the rip, Dunk got lit up too. So this is a bloody battle right off the get-go. And Dunk's sitting there really fucked up and bleeding out. And he's like, one moment I feel drunk, the next moment I feel like I'm dying. And he's like, And then Baelor walks in, and right as Steely Pete's like, all right, well, we'll take the armor off of him, we'll get him drunk, and then we'll cover the wounds in oil and light it on fire. That should save him. That's what the maesters do, I think. And Baelor walks in and goes, wine, not oil. Oil will kill him, right? They put oil on him, light it on fire, it just burns him alive. No, but apparently wine would cauterize the wound, maybe? Interesting. But Baelor says that he will send a maester to look at Dunk after he's done looking at his brother. Ooh, so Maekar took some damage in the battle as well? Interesting. But Dunk drops down to a knee in front of Baelor and says, I am your man. My lord, please, your man. And you're like, oh man, I hope Dunk works for Baelor for the rest of his days and Baelor becomes king and, you know, he's his right-hand man. And Baelor says, I need good men, Duncan, for the realm. And Baelor, you know, asks Sir Raymond to help him get his helmet off. And he goes, it is cracked, probably from my brother's mace. Oh, he's strong. So he's like thinking about it, not as in like a way like, oh, my brother hit me, I'm mad at him. He's like thinking about it as like two brothers fighting when they're kids, like, oh man, you know, reveling in the fact that they hurt each other, you know, and being like, remember that time you broke my leg? Remember that time I broke your arm? Oh, you know, two brothers laughing brotherly ways. But he's like, yeah, my brother, he was strong. And then he's like, my fingers, they feel like wood. And Raymond's looking at him like, what's wrong with Sir Baelor? And Steely Pete removes the helmet off of Baelor's head, and we see the whole back of his head is missing, and a chunk is taken out of it, and Dunk catches him as he falls, and says, no, 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 I'm sorry, sir, and he cries over the body as we cut to credits on episode 5, and that's like, what? And only the finale remains? And like questions heading into the finale, just because we didn't see him at the end there, you know, is Sir Lionel alright? And, you know, most likely. But what the heck's gonna happen in the finale? Baelor's funeral? What? I thought the finale would have ended, you know, somewhere more here, but no, we still have one more episode of like the aftermath of this battle, this trial of the seven, and like if Baelor was the hand of the king and the heir to the throne, where is the succession going to go from here? Is it going to go to Valar, his one and only son, or is it going to go to his brother Maekar, who is then Egg's father, and the line of succession would then go to Egg's family rather than Baelor's? Oof, this is going to disrupt the realm in quite a way, I can already tell, but there is a trailer for next week that I want to take a peek at as well. But just coming off of the IMDb scores, episode 1 was an 8.2, episode 2 was 8.3, episode 3 was a 9.1. Last week they scored a 9.7, and then at this point, episode 5, when I looked, it was a 10.0, but I think it's at like a 9.8, which is still even higher than episode 4. Now, I don't think episode 6, the finale, will have as high a score as the remaining, as the last 2 episodes. I think these last 2 were the climax, you know, the high point of the season, but who knows, this final episode could be very interesting as well. But only one more week of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms remain, and I am totally here for it. But just a couple of clips from the episode that I didn't get to put at in the moment. We get Maekar being like, my boy! So that's kind of like There Will Be Blood. I've abandoned my boy! My son! I've abandoned my boy! You know, so he sees his son Aerion go down and he freaking punches Baelor in the face, stabs Sir Lionel's horse, and he runs in like, my boy! You know, like, Maekar, I didn't know you had it in you like that. But just the clip here of the end of this with Sir Baelor and like what happens at the end of this, just insane ending of this episode.
Or we'll kill him. I'll send Mr. Yormwell to have a look at him when he's done tending to my brother.
Your Grace, I am your man. Please, your man.
I need good men, Sir Duncan. The realm. Sir Raymond, my helm, if you would be so kind.
Wouldn't you, Grace?
All right.
Visors cracked. My fingers feel I just feel like wood.
Goodman pay. And the helmet's crushed down the back, your grace. It's smashed into the gorget.
Your brother's mace, most like. He's strong.
No, Your Grace. Your Grace, get up, sir. Get up, sir. No. Please. I'm sorry. Get up. I'm sorry.
Oh man, so Baelor takes that incredible death-killing blow and it takes a chunk out of the back of the head, and some people were saying it was from that clip where he hits him with the mace and then goes and runs to his boy. But I believe this clip where Dunk, finally hears Aegon say, "I yield," before he drags him over to the lords, he stands up and his ears are still ringing, but he turns around and looks at the field and we still see people fighting, and we see what looks like Maekar delivering and landing a hell of a blow on Baelor. And you saw from the previous clip that Dunk is devastated. He is so sorry that this guy, he had to fight on his team just so Dunk, an innocent man, wouldn't have to be held guilty for something he did that was just, and so Dunk blames himself for Baelor's death here. But let's see this blow, and is it really Maekar's fault for this death? Let's see. Ooh, so it had to have been that blow right there. Maekar's fighting Sir Lionel and Baelor at once, and he just turns around and hits Baelor as hard as he can. Oh man, so that's it on episode 5, and then we have a trailer for episode 6 that I want to take a look at. But holy Christ, man, this is such a devastating ending, and Baelor was such a good man, and I don't know if we talked about it in previous episodes, but he did have heterochromia, which is 2 different colored eyes, because Valar, his son, had that, so they gave it to Baelor to just kind of be like, oh, Targaryen inbred, why not have 2 different colored eyes? You can barely notice it, but he has a blue eye and a brown eye. And Baelor, man, what a legend. I wish he lasted longer. He's much like Ned Stark of season 1 of Game of Thrones. Died too soon, should have gone. I would have watched 12 seasons of Baelor and Dunk and Egg, and them being the head of the realm. And I would have watched 12 seasons of Ned Stark being the king that should have been after Robert. But that's just not how the story goes, unfortunately. But this is a crazy, crazy episode, and only 1 episode remains. So let's look at the little teaser trailer for next week.
Baelor fought for me. He gave his fucking life.
Your prince fought for you against men sworn to protect him. He risked nothing.
He had in him to be a great king. Why would the gods take him and leave you?
I've wondered the same.
There's a war coming. We could be a force, you and I.
Sir Duncan, Prince Maekar demands a word.
My youngest son seems to have grown fond of you, sir. It is time he was a squire. And he tells me he will serve no knight but you.
Will you have him? Beg your pardon, Lord, but I think I'm done with princes.
Maybe you're not the knight I thought you were.
Interesting. So 1 episode remains, and it seems like Baelor does really die. And Valar, his son, is like, why is he dead and not you? And Dunk's like, I ask myself that every morning. Oh, poor guy, man, really. And it seems like they're trying to tease that maybe next episode Dunk and Egg might be splitting up and not together. I certainly don't want that going into the finale, but, you know, heading into next season, I want Dunk and Egg to be together, and I want Egg to be his squire, and I think Sir Dunk deserves to, you know, and it looks like Maekar is going to be in charge, and he's like, will you take my son as a squire? He will only squire for you, sir. And, yeah, it looks interesting. It also looks like Sir Lionel's going to be okay, maybe on like a crutch or something, but he seems like he wants Dunk and Lionel to be together in the battle that's to come. You know, what war, what fight is he referring to? I don't know, but very interesting stuff, man. I am loving this show through 5 episodes. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms has been amazing. I can't wait for House of the Dragon in the summertime. And right now, me and my roommate have been grinding through Game of Thrones Season 1 for his first time ever seeing it. So, you know, that's been fun as well. And just living in the Game of Thrones world is absolutely iconic and just, I wouldn't want it any other way, you know? Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I want all of those shows to continue on, you know? Give me Game of Thrones Season 9 eventually. Give me House of the Dragon next season. Give me 15 seasons of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I will be here for all of them. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Please comment them down below, or if you want to send them to me on my other social medias, links for those down in the description below. But thank you for anyone who's made it this far into the episode, and if you would like to support the channel, the best way of doing that is dropping a like on this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you haven't already, and hitting that bell so you don't miss the finale breakdown next week for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 6, and you'll get the notification when that comes out. Once again, my name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, and I will see you beautiful people in the next episode. Peace!